Body shot. Ooh, that hurt, didn't it?
When the adrenaline starts pumping and you know what you can do with this right hand, it's hard to not do that.
Here are your hosts, Derick G and AJ.
What's going on, folks? Welcome back to another episode of the Bloody Water Podcast. It is a big weekend full of fights. Not only do we have the PFL, not only do we have Bellator, but we have UFC. Obviously, most important is the one that we're covering, UFC 274. Big fight feeling on our hands. Charles Olives, however you want to call him, Charles Oliveira, the undisputed lightweight king, is looking to defend his crown against Justin Gaethje, a mauler, a heavy-hitting bad man right there. Arguably the one man in the division right now who poses the biggest threat to the title. Namajunas, she's defending her title in a rematch against Carla Esparza, a rematch about 8 years in the making. We have a lot of fun fights on our hands this weekend, folks. That's really the main point. And before I do anything else, you know I need to bring in my co-host, the New Mexico native, the Santa Fe bomber himself, AJ. Brother, like I said, big fight feels, my man. In comparison to the rest of the UFC fight nights, even the UFC numbered cards, I feel like I haven't felt this pumped up for a fight since maybe the way Zhang Weili, Rose Namajunas back at like UFC 268 or whatever. I mean, how you feeling?
Man, Derick, it's been a while since I've been this pumped up for a fight. There's a lot of our favorite fighters always make like certain appearances, but it's very rare when it's basically top to bottom with somebody who I would pay legitimate money to go watch in person, man.
Absolutely.
This is a very few and far between fight card where I'm with you. I say, man, we might want to drop $75 if you see this fight. If you know you can't get to your local sports bar or however you do your thing, man, this might be the one that's worth it. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing good. And yeah, like you said, brother, we're always pretty strong proponents of go out to the sports bar, don't waste the money. But this is one where we got throwbacks. We got Donald Cerrone versus Joe Lauzon, man. We got Shogun versus OSP. I mean, arguably, I kind of do feel like maybe that scrap specifically could be a prelim fight. We could have bumped something up there, but it's a nostalgia fight. It's a make you feel good fight if you're a lifelong fight fan, if you're an OG fight fan. But brother, Michael Chandler versus Tony Ferguson. Cucuy is making his return. I know this is name value, might not be as competitive as we would like it to be, but I definitely think it has name value. AJ, right now, brother, you are in the lead on the scoreboard for the total yearly scoreboard. 54-27. I am 52-29. So it's basically like a 2-fight lead for you right now. But nonetheless, that is a big lead right there. You've been in the lead basically all year long, brother. So it's like we neck and neck. But definitely it shows that on a year-to-year basis, brother, everything can change, man. You cannot rest on your laurels. I wanted to ask you before we get into things, man, how is your perspective right now, given that you have been maintaining this lead? When you're making your picks, have you been doing any of these picks out of caution, out of, I want to maintain my lead, so I don't want to go too risky? Like, what has been the thought process for you?
Man, I'm still sticking to my guns, brother. Still doing the same thing I was doing. I actually had that thought you're talking about with this fight card, and especially with the Justin Gaethje Oliveira fight, man. I can see it going both ways. There's one that I want to win, but one that I think is gonna win, and just going back and forth battling that. I had to say, I looked at yours because you actually sent me your picks early. When I looked, I was like, he's going that route. All right. Maybe I stay there just to kind of battle it out a little bit, but I do think the other guy's gonna win. Fuck it, I went with my heart. So no, man, I'm still doing the same, bro. There's a little bit of gamesmanship going on for sure, because this year is a very long year. We're about midway through, man. There's a lot of room that can be made up or lost. So it's definitely the gamesmanship there, man. But I've been sticking to my guns, man. How about you? You been changing anything up?
Well, listen,
trying to get a lead?
Little mental warfare going on over here. You know what I mean? I got to be cerebral out there in the field. So yeah, maybe. I mean, folks, listen. Let's just get straight to the point. Let's do a little TLDR. Why don't we? Here we go, brother. So I'm rocking with some upsets. I'm smelling upsets right now. I'm rocking with Justin Gaethje and Carla Esparza to take those titles away from the current title holders. Now, clearly, you got Oliveira and Namajunas, right? But obviously, we're seeing the same. Michael Chandler over Tony Ferguson. That's most likely. I think that is like an easy money line pick that you could pick right there. OSP versus Shogun. This is an unknown right here, brother. This is a battle of unknowns. We know what OSP has done recently, but Shogun, we haven't seen him since his loss to Paul Craig when he tapped to strikes, brother. Not a good look. But lastly, my man, this is one I was a little puzzled by. I'm picking Joe Lauzon. You're picking Cowboy Cerrone. Is it the New Mexico, connection, brother? What are we talking about here?
Man, I was originally off the jump. I was going Lauzon, but just to save a quick little thing, I saw a video of Cowboy talking, man, and he's going Papa Cerrone mode again. Yeah. And there's it's literally all from an interview I saw. So take it with what you will. But I saw the interview Cowboy was saying. I was, man, he looks good. He looks good. We'll see, I guess, on Fight Night though.
I mean, listen, an emotional cowboy might be a dangerous cowboy, brother. You never know. When you channeling all that energy to I'm fighting for my kid, oh man, you don't want to mess with nobody like that. Like, you don't mess with Mama Bear, you don't mess with Papa Bear neither. You don't mess with Papa Cowboy right there. So, folks, for the TLDR, once again, I got Justin Gaethje, Carla Esparza, Michael Chandler, OSP, and Joe Lauzon. AJ, who do you got?
I'm rolling with Oliveira, Rose Namajunas, Thug Rose, Michael Chandler, OSP, and then finally, like you said, Papa Cerrone.
All right, folks. So that is your TLDR. If you'd like to know why we're rolling with who we're rolling with, stick around and we'll let you know. But yeah, that's kind of what I was talking about for the gamesmanship, for the cerebralness, right? I'm smelling upset. I don't know what it is, AJ, and clearly we'll get into it in one moment, but every time that I thought about this card, over the last week when we were rocking with the Fight Night still, and I was just kind of previewing it in my head, I was kind of just thinking to myself, okay, obviously Charles Oliveira is a bad man. Clearly he's proven the doubters wrong time and time again. Rose Namajunas, look at what she's been able to do, but also look at her recent resume of fights. It's been rematch, and she's been able to defeat everybody in the rematches. But you're not getting the full gambit of opposition. You're fighting the same 2-3 people for the span of years. So now that we're getting that kind of different look, right? Charles Oliveira versus a Justin Gaethje. This is a very dangerous matchup. Rose Namajunas versus Carla Esparza. Very dangerous matchup given the stylistic nature of it. I just think that we can smell some upsets. Clearly, like I said, we'll get into it in a second. But before we do that, folks, I do need to remind you, we are north of 370 subscribers, so we really appreciate you. But let's get that number up to 400. Drop a like, subscribe, hit us up on YouTube at Bloody Water Podcast, or you can type in Free Thinkers Club. Really, it's your choice. Either one will get you to where you need to go. But if you don't even want to make the chance of having an error, then you're going to go head over to bloodywaterpodcast.com, the home, the hub of our mixed martial arts combat sports analysis program. Head over there. Find all the links, buy some merch, use code BWP10 for 10% off everything in the store. Come on, what more can we ask for? So I think that is a good lead to get us into some sleepers, brother, so let's get it.
Time for some fight night.
And if you ain't paying attention, you're going to sleep on me and I'm going to wake you up.
All right, AJ, so in an interesting turn of events, we're rocking with a couple of flyweights for both of our sleepers, right? Each of us. My sleeper, your sleeper for the featured sleepers. Now, folks, lest we forget, this is 15 fights on this fight card. This is a stacked card. There were a lot of fights you could have gone with. You could have gone with the Randy Brown, Khaos Williams, Francisco Trinaldo, Danny Roberts, Macy, Chiasson, Norma, Dumont. But we said, no, we're not going to do that. Actually, we got some flyweights instead. So, brother, you got Journey Newson versus Fernie Garcia. Fernie Garcia is making his UFC debut. Journey Newson has had a little bit of a skid in his UFC tenure thus far. Talk to me, brother. Why is this your featured sleeper for UFC 274?
Well, that's exactly it, Derick. Man, this is one of those fights where it's still a young guy in the organization, and Journey Newson needs this win desperately. I'm pretty sure he's on a 4-fight losing streak, something like that. 3 fights ever since he's come into the UFC. He's lost every fight. He had a no contest. He had a win, an overhand right bomb of a win, but they took it away from him for marijuana. You hate to see it. So now he's technically 2-1, man. He has that no contest on his belt, and it still looks like a loss to him. 3-fight losing streak. It's a rough one for Journey Newson, man, especially with somebody coming in. Big names, man. If you're ever a fan, what was it, like 2 years ago? Yeah, 2019. When this dude's coming in, Journey Newson came in with some heat, man. Now the shoe's on the other foot. He's the older guy in the ring looking to possibly maintain his job. And we've seen throughout this last week, man, there's some like 20 some cuts off the UFC roster. So very much Journey Newson needs to win this fight to keep his job. And Fernie Garcia, now, like I said, the shoe's on the other foot. We got Fernie Garcia coming in here. This dude, he's 10-1, lost way back early in his career, had a badass overhand right ground strikes in the contender series. This dude's Garcia, man, he's for real, and he's coming with some heat right in the beginning. I'm excited to see, because is it going to be the overzealous young gun coming in, and then we get the old guy coming in and makes a big crack, resettles himself in the division, or is this young dude coming in to steal the heat of Journey Newson? Either way, that's why I picked this fight, because it's going to be so entertaining how the X's and O's break down, because both of these dudes can scrap. Now, with the mental game going back and forth, this is what really intrigues me on this fight. Derick, coach, thinking about this fight, and then who you going with your sleeper?
Well, first off, I think that this is going to be a fun fight, but I do think that this is a fight Journey Newson can win right here. Fernie Garcia, even in that Dana White Contender Series matchup he had, it was interesting. He was getting overwhelmed a little bit in the beginning. He ended up coming back with that bomb of a right hand like you're talking about. But let's be real, brother. That was his first knockout victory of his career. This is a decision machine, got a couple submissions. But one thing that was interesting, AJ, is that Fernie Garcia, in this odd twist of fate, I suppose, out of all of the MMA fighters that I follow and keep up with and have contacts with, this is the dude whose name gets mentioned the most when you're talking about the next guy, the next big thing that's going to come into the UFC who's going to make a lot of damage. So I just found it interesting because I'm like, it's a flyweight, right? I have a flyweight I'm going to talk about that I'm really hyped upon. But ultimately, it's just like, if this is the guy, man, then, I mean, shoot, this is the guy. But I would need to see why you're the guy. You got to show more than just a skillful decision. Let's see some finishes. Let's see some bangers, man. So hopefully this could be a banger. I do think this will be a fun one, brother, in the flyweight division between Journey Newson and Fernie Garcia. Now, for my featured sleeper, folks, I got one that I talked about. If you're a fan of this program, if you've been watching for quite some time, then you're going to remember this because I talked about this some months ago and it got scrapped, but now we're back on. I'm going to be talking about a flyweight contest between Justin Rodriguez and CJ Vergara. Now, this is going to be a fun fight because if you know anything about Justin Rodriguez, the man that goes by KR, you know this is a man who wants to walk forward, wants to hit you with an array of spinning techniques, wants to get you in the clinch, use beautiful knees out of that Thai plum, hit you with some Muay Thai trips, get you on the ground, do basically whatever he wants to. He has 3 knockouts, 2 submissions, 2 decisions, and he won his Dana White Contender Series contract, or I guess I should say he won his UFC contract from the Dana White Contender Series off of a decision win. Now, AJ, I want to ask you really quickly, because you've talked about some sleepers who have gotten a UFC contract after a decision win, which we know you got to get finishes if you want to get into the UFC, right? That shows you how skillful somebody is, how high Dana is on these prospects by saying, okay, you got a great regional career. You come to the Dana White Contender Series. You get a decision, but I'm going to give you the shot anyways because that's how good I know you are. Does that speak volumes to you when you see something like that?
Massive volumes, Derick, because it's literally like the Grinch handing out a present at Christmas. Like everybody be shocked the fact that you get a decision and goes to the Contender Series. I'm sure it has a lot of the guys in the locker room a little upset because they've had to go back, have a decision win, had a good performance. I forget the guy's name from like 2 weeks ago. Had a great performance, decision win in the Contender Series. Uncle Dana sends him back to the B League for a couple weeks and then has him come back to the Contender Series again. I'm sure there's some heads turning. So, man, I think it speaks volumes for KA. It was hard. Who was
Justin Rodriguez, brother.
Go.
But you might be talking about Caio Bahaio, man, because that's what happened to him. Yeah, he got a decision win. They're like, that's not good enough. Came back, got a finish. They gave him the contract, right? That's neither here nor there. The point that I'm making here is that Justin Rodriguez is the next guy. When we're talking about the skillful techniques, when we're talking about the clone of the Zabit Magomed Sharapovs, and I always use this example for these high flyer, flashy dudes, but this is a walk forward, great grappler, great striker, going up against a CJ Vergara who wants to be close range, big bombs with the hooks, wants to get inside, use those knees. So this is a long range fighter in Rodriguez versus a short range fighter in CJ Vergara. This is going to be a scrap because both of these dudes are hungry. CJ Vergara, he did lose a decision in his UFC debut against Ode Osborne, which is a very skillful opponent to go against in your UFC debut. But nonetheless, basically carbon copies of each other. Same measurement, same reach, same height, more or less. But I think that Justin Rodriguez is going to put on a show, and he is going to prove why he got that UFC contract off of a decision win in the Dana White Contender Series. So, folks, with that being said, that is my featured sleeper for UFC Vegas 274. So, Justin Rodriguez versus CJ Vergara. Tune in. Journey Newson versus Fernie Garcia. Tune in. Flyweights. Tune in, brother. What are we talking about? And I think you had a flyweight for your sleeper last week too, brother. So that goes to show just how stacked this division is. Let's jump into some main card action, brother, if you do not mind. I don't want to mince any words. I want to talk about this first title fight.
Here's to another main card breakdown, courtesy of your hosts, Derick G and
Carlos
AJ.
Oliveira versus Justin Gaethje, brother. I mean, come on. This is a matchup where we said it in the pre-show, or we said it earlier in the show, in the intro. It can go anyway. It can go all Oliveira. It can go all Gaethje. It could be a mixture of both. But coming off of Charles Oliveira's first title defense against Dustin Poirier, it went to show that his use of all of his tools was the difference maker. Poirier was really big hooks, straights, using a lot of boxing, a couple calf kicks, but Oliveira was teep kick, elbow, knee, head kick. I mean, he was going everywhere and mixing up the submission. So being that Dustin Poirier is more of a one-dimensional fighter in comparison to Charles Oliveira, what type of problems do you think Justin Gaethje is going to be able to give him? Because Justin Gaethje is very much a boxer himself as well, right? Lots of big calf kicks. Not the most unique when it comes down to just an overall repertoire of strikes, but he's effective and he's efficient, and I think that's a little bit of a difference. He's a lot of motions that he's using. Everything is calculated. Everything is for a purpose. What problems can Justin Gaethje give Charles Oliveira in this matchup?
Well, it really comes down to, I think, the fact that he's a dog in there.
Yeah.
You know, the big difference between game wise, between Poirier and Gaethje, somewhat similar. You know, boxing down the pipe, good strikes, good calf kicks. Justin Gaethje might land a little bit harder of calf kicks, especially up close in boxing range. Usually, people like to say it a little bit out, but the difference is, man, Justin Gaethje, he's going to keep that pace and that pressure all the time. He's hittable, but on purpose. Like he's willing to be hittable, to land those big shots on you because he thinks he can hit you harder than you can hit him, and he's already proved that. I think that's going to be the biggest thing that's going to give Charles Oliveira a problem right here, is if he gets sucked into that kind of dogfight style that Justin Gaethje likes. Because if that's the case, and we're not seeing a multi-dimensional Charles Oliveira, we're only seeing that one-sided, I'm going to get you back. Oh, you hit me, I'm going to get you back. Then I think we're going to be in trouble. I don't think Charles Oliveira can go out there and fight the same kind of fight that we saw Michael Chandler do, where he was exactly doing that. Like, oh, you hit me, here's another one. Oh, you hit me, here you go. That kind of back and forth style, that's going to then lean very well towards Justin Gaethje, not so much Charles Oliveira. So if he's able to do that, I think that's his clear path to victory right here. I don't know, though, Derick. How do you feel Justin Gaethje's ground game? Because he is a very solid ground game wrestler, man. He can do a lot of things on top position. How is that going to fare against Charles Oliveira? Does he have a chance there, or is it strictly going to be this stand in a phone booth match like I'm talking about? What do you think?
Well, that's a great question that you ask right there. What do we think about the ground game of Justin Gaethje? And what we saw against Khabib Nurmagomedov went to show that, well, does Justin Gaethje want to be on the ground? Does he want to have his back taken? And if Charles Oliveira can put the backpack on Justin Gaethje like he did to Dustin Poirier, it could be a very short night. And that was one of the realms of possibilities that I had right there. I think that Justin Gaethje, though, let's not forget, great wrestler himself, right? Like, great wrestler. But I view Justin Gaethje in that Chuck Liddell mold in terms of wrestling, where you use your wrestling defensively, if that makes sense. So I'm going to use my wrestling to make sure the fight stays on the feet. That's why I think Justin Gaethje will be effective in this fight, because if he doesn't use his wrestling too much, he's not going to tire out too much. He'll be able to go the length of 5 rounds. Charles Oliveira, being that he's such a high-paced fighter, I mean, it's something that we've yet to see. He finished Poirier in the 3rd round of a fight where he was able to dominate a lot of the grappling exchanges, use a lot of control. But if he's constantly trying to grapple and Justin Gaethje's defending these takedowns over the course of 5 rounds, who's more tired at the end? So will Charles Oliveira be able to get Justin Gaethje onto the ground to be able to do those things? Maybe. Honestly, we don't know right here, but that is a big question mark that we have right there. So I want to know what you make of this quote right here, AJ. The quote goes as such. Charles Oliveira says, Justin Gaethje, he's a truck. He only moves forward, and I want to move forward, so there's definitely going to be collision. Now, Justin Gaethje, he actually responded to that by saying, I create car crashes, and I am the object with the most force. So clearly, if the approach is going to be head-on-head collision, Justin Gaethje thinks he can win that. We saw Charles Oliveira get clipped by Michael Chandler and by Dustin Poirier back-to-back fights, but have the heart and the resilience that we haven't seen in some of his other fights to be able to will himself back into the fight and ultimately overtake and overcome the fight. So with that quote right there and with that car crash scenario, if they do get into that head-on collision, do you think Justin Gaethje has the power that it takes to be able to nullify the will and heart of Charles Oliveira from getting back into the fight?
Ooh, I think old Charlie, Chucky Olives, I think back then, this was 3 years ago. Now with the strap around his waist, man, I don't know. It's a whole nother level of Oliveira. Although at the same point, Justin Gaethje does arguably hit harder than both Poirier and Chandler. So I don't know, man. I do think it's possible. It's quite a possibility, especially, you get into those late rounds 4, rounds 5, and Justin Gaethje's still throwing heat.
Yeah.
That's when I can really see it happen. Maybe not in the first round where, he gets clipped and he comes right back, but in those late rounds for sure.
So one of my questions that I have to kind of like conclude this thing on right here is that, do you envision when you see this fight, does anything in your head, does like the scenario of Aljamain Sterling versus Petr Yan #2, does that pop into your head at all?
Yeah, kinda. Yeah, a little bit. Like just to putting the backpack on him the whole time, controlling the fights, and then giving a couple rounds away to secure the win. Is that what you're talking about?
Well, I'm talking more of this is kind of how I see this entire card going, at least for these championship matchups, where Aljamain Sterling won the fight, right? He won 3 of the 5 rounds, and he lost the last 2 rounds, right? So on the feet, he was losing all day long. When it got to the control situations, he won. Did he do a lot of damage? Not really, but he controlled, so he won. So Charles Oliveira doesn't have, even though he's a finisher, this dude finishes what? He has 29 finishes in his 32 wins. Like, he finishes everybody, right? However, if he can take a control path to this victory and avoid the damage that is Justin Gaethje, I think that might be a smart idea. Do you think that's a game plan he's willing to go down with?
I think it's one of the game plans. I think they are going to try to lull him or to draw Justin Gaethje into that Marauder style of fight, and then go for the rest of it. I'm not sure if right now Charles Oliveira needs the ground game to win, but I think he'll use it. Keep that in the back pocket as a plan of last resort, just in case the kicks and the strikes aren't really going his way. Then he says, "All right, I'm going to take this down. I'm going to control a couple rounds. I'm going to secure the win, so that way, I don't have to keep this crazy pace going." So I see the comparison right there between the Aljo fight, the Aljo and Yan versus the Justin Gaethje Oliveira fight. Because if that's the case, and the champion does want to retain his belt, that is always an option for somebody who's as skilled on the ground as Charles Oliveira.
Absolutely. So let's talk money lines, but let's talk some wagering. So clearly Oliveira is a minus 165 favorite, plus 140 comeback for Justin Gaethje, which I think speaks volumes, because with how dangerous Oliveira has been recently, I think that normally you would see the money line be a little more skewed in favor of Oliveira, but Gaethje's a bad man, dangerous man. Now let's talk about the props right here. So obviously, what is the 2 main outcomes that we can see coming from this fight? Oliveira by submission, Gaethje by KO or TKO, right? I could also see Oliveira by a KO, TKO as well if they get into a crazy war and Oliveira is able to weather some of that storm. So for Charles Oliveira to win by submission, plus 135, brother. I mean, clearly the odds makers think that there's some real merit to that one. For Gaethje to win by TKO, plus 175. So even though this is plus money on both sides of the board, this is really not the most lucrative in terms of like a plus 500, plus 700 you can cash in on. So would you play it safe and roll with the money line, because this can go such a different gambit of ways, a different variety of ways? Would you play it safe and go money line with these fighters, or do you want to chase a prop in terms of the submission or the TKO? Or would you go points? I mean, I haven't said the points prop yet, but what do you think?
I think I'd go the safer route, depending on what the points option is giving me. Because as much as I can see both of these fighters finishing each other, I see more options for them to have a long, drawn-out match just because they're so good. You know what I'm saying? Like, if these guys fight 10 out of 10 times, I think like 8, maybe even 7 of them are all going to be decisions, just going to be wars. And then it's going to be those 2 or 3 that you get lucky and catch somebody in something, man. So I think the money line, the prop bet, or the money line, would probably be the more lucrative way right there. Unless there's something crazy on the decision. We'll see.
We'll see. So when it comes down to points right here, Charles Oliveira to win by points plus 475, Justin Gaethje to win on points plus 775. So the over and under on this one is 1.5 rounds, brother. The odds makers do not think this is going to go the distance right here. Minus 200 for the over on 1.5, plus 160 for the under. So, I mean, there still is like, yeah, I might go over, but I don't think they're going to think a true decision going into this fight. And being honest, the last decision Oliveira won was against Tony Ferguson 2 fights ago. Last decision that Justin Gaethje won was his last fight against Michael Chandler. So, I mean, it could happen, but this is 5 rounds, and I think these 2 are going to want to finish each other. So with that being said, brother, I mean, now it's time to give the pick. 1.5 rounds is the over and under. Are you going and still? Are you going and new? Obviously, I know you're TLDR, but talk it out to the good folks who are listening and watching at home.
I'm going and still. I'm going with Charles Oliveira, even though this is one of those fights where I want Justin Gaethje to win. I'm more of a fan of Justin Gaethje than I am Charles Oliveira. But I think Oliveira's going to get it done, man. I don't think he's going to fall into the trap that Justin Gaethje's trying to set. Yeah. Now the big question, because at first I thought decision as well, because like there's no way these guys are going to be able to finish each other, but they might. I'm sticking to my guns. I'm sticking to decision. I'm going Charles Oliveira by decision. I'm taking that prop bet, man. Those points, that'd be a hell of a comeback. Plus 4 something. Nice.
Plus 475 for Charles Oliveira. So you could take the minus 165 and he could finish it in whatever way he wants to, or you could pick that plus money for the points. That's big plus money. I don't know if I would take it personally, just because you're right. These dudes are finishers. And with that being said, I'm going to rock with and new. I think this is the ultimate litmus test right here for Justin Gaethje. I think that the scorn, the wrath, and the burn that he felt after getting submitted by Khabib in such devastating fashion really went to show that he needed to put everything into it. And when he talked about the pre-show, he was saying that this was kind of his last hurrah at the title. The man is only 33 years old, and he's talking about this is my last shot at it. So it goes to show that he's going with that warrior mentality of like, if not now, never. So we got to get it done now. So I'm rocking with Justin Gaethje. And listen, man, I think he finishes Charles Oliveira, man. I think we're going to see a third round finish. So I'm going to rock with the over as well. But I think those hands of stone, man, are something else. When you heard those thudding shots against Michael Chandler, it made you wonder, how is this dude still standing? Like, what a chin on Iron Michael Chandler. Either way, that is your main event. That is the lightweight championship matchup. But do not worry, folks, because we have another championship match on deck. Rose Namajunas versus Carla Esparza. AJ, this is a rematch, nearly 8 years in the making. A rematch where Carla Esparza is looking to get that belt that she once held. She was the inaugural UFC strawweight champion, I should say, after winning it on The Ultimate Fighter number 20, brother. So this is many, many moons ago. This is Angela Hill was on this Ultimate Fighter. This was a long, long time ago, right? So here they meet again. Rose Namajunas, very chiseled, veteran, savvy fighter, but Carla Esparza is too, brother. And here's the interesting thing. When it comes down to the experience, it's hard to believe Rose Namajunas is as good as she is, being that she is only 12-4 in her MMA career. Carla Esparza, 19-6, a lot more experience. I mean, she has some more losses too, but that's neither here nor there. Let's talk about what this matchup is going to entail, the archetype of this matchup. The archetype of this is a striker grappler in Namajunas versus a wrestler in Carla Esparza. Now, AJ, I'm sure you've watched the first fight, Namajunas Esparza number 1. What happened in that fight? Rose Namajunas, who was being compared to Ronda Rousey, the next baddest woman on the planet, da-da-da-da-da. And what did Carla Esparza do? She just took her down and took her down again and took her down again. Did she do the most effective damage against Namajunas? No, not really. But she controlled the rounds. And she won the fight. And the thing that I wanted to think about on this one, AJ, is do you remember when Rose Namajunas fought Weili Zhang last, right? And she was basically, I thought this was a really close fight. It was back and forth. Zhang got some takedowns. Namajunas got some takedowns. But what edged it out, AJ? If we remember correctly, in the 5th round of that fight, Rose Namajunas, she blast double, took down Weili Zhang, won the fight. Did she have a lot of damage in the ground and pound? No. Did she control? Yes. And that's what won the fight. And this is what scares me, AJ. This is the reason partially why I think Esparza has a real shot to win this. Because she doesn't have to bloody up Namajunas. She doesn't have to damage her crazy. But if she can control her, maintain top control, and put her in a spot where it looks visually, optically like Esparza is winning, she could win the fight, bro. Like, I don't know how so many people are discounting Carla Esparza, thinking that Rose Namajunas is just going to mop the floor with her. So give me a counter argument right here. What can Rose Namajunas do to make this convincingly dominant on her edge? What can make it seem like Carla Esparza is no true challenger to the title on her end?
Yeah, I see what you're saying, Derick, especially because in that first fight, I saw what you saw. Mm-hmm. I saw Carla Esparza coming in, taking her down, controlling the entire fight. Yeah. But one thing I noticed, and I think what was the biggest change right here, is Rose quit on herself. In that first fight, the mentality of Rose, you could see it, man. She was down. She was out, head down. She was very, very sad in what was going, because you can tell she had a lot of hype, a lot of praise going in there. She quits on herself mid-fight, ends up getting finished, and then now she has to deal with the repercussions of that going forward. I think that fight really helped her learn a lot. So now going into this next one, especially like you said in the Weili Zhang fight, she knew she had to win this fight, win the points, win the fight through the judges, get the points, score the takedown, get the win, secured. However, by all means, get that bag. Same thing with Carla Esparza. Now Carla, she has the wrestling advantage. We're all gonna know that going in. Rose is gonna know that going in, but. And this is actually kind of leads into the exact question I was going to ask you, because Uncle Chael says that Rose Namajunas is her skills overall haven't improved very much, but her mentality has, and I think that's going to be the biggest thing in this one. She's not going to fade in the fight. She's not going to be quitting on herself going into this one, whether Carla Esparza is able to get those dominating positions or not. I think Rose is going to be able to find a way out. She's been working a lot harder, a lot better, at least. I think her skills have improved. I'll leave that one to you if you think her skills improved or just her mentality like Uncle Chael or not. But I think they have, and I think she has a path in order to win, or her best path in order to win is going to be keeping it on the strikes and then taking it down whenever Carla thinks, oh, this is going to be a stand-up battle. I got this. Next thing you know, she's on her butt like, oh, no, I think that's going to be the one path that Rose has to be able to secure this win right there. What do you think?
It's interesting that you say that because when I look at the first fight to now, do I think Rose Namajunas has improved? Absolutely. Of course she has, right? But I think it's been subtle changes, right? I think the archetype, the mold is still the same. It's just been refined. I think that's really what it comes down to. Footwork is a lot better, I do think. Head movement, boxing, a lot better. Grappling, a lot better. But like I said, it's refined, and she hasn't had to use it in all of these scenarios. But this is my takeaway from this, man. I think you're right. I think that if Rose Namajunas uses grappling to her advantage and actually initiates takedowns on Esparza and puts Esparza on her back, I think it's going to come in as a little bit of a shock because that's not the game plan. But keeping the fight on the feet probably is the best way, because if Rose Namajunas keeps it on the feet against Esparza, I think that this could be an easy decision win. I think she could run away with this fight, no problem. But what have we seen time and time again is that Carla Esparza does not allow you to just stick around on the feet. She has a knack for finding that single, man. Her single is so deadly. So I wanted to actually look at it really quickly because I think this is going to be an interesting thing to pull up. When I look at Carla Esparza and I look at her last couple of fights, so she has 3 takedowns in her last fight against Yan Xiaonan, 5 takedowns against Marina Rodriguez, 1 takedown against Michelle Waterson, 4 against Alexa Grasso, 4 against Vina Jandiroba, against Tatiana Suarez, one of the best wrestlers in the strawweight division, who clearly has been injured for so long. She got taken down 9 times, brother. Wasn't able to register a single takedown. But that's the elite wrestler of the elite right there. You look at Claudia Gadelha, took her down twice. Cynthia Calvillo took her down twice. Marina Moroz took her down 6 times. Randa Marcos took her down 4 times. The last time that Carla Esparza didn't register a takedown in her UFC career was never, because she's registered a takedown in every single fight. It hasn't even been close. When she fought Namajunas the first time, 5 takedowns. So clearly she's able to take down everybody. That's not a problem. And since Wei Li was able to take down Namajunas a couple times pretty easily in that fight, it lends me to believe that Esparza is not going to have an issue with this. The issue is going to come if Namajunas can use her wrestling in the Justin Gaethje mold and say, listen, we're not going to go down on the ground. We're going to stick around on the feet. And under Trevor Whitman, I think that that's probably going to be the game plan, honestly, man. So clearly Esparza has to get the fight to the ground if she wants to win. That is clear through and through. But how much of a chance do you think she has on the feet against Rose Namajunas? Like, is it just outclassed? Is it too many levels above? Or what do you think?
No, I mean, she's always got the puncher's chance, man. Carla Esparza does have power. She has better striking. I wasn't going to say great striking. She can strike, but she has good technique, man. She can stay in there. Much more of a wrestler, obviously. If this ends up being a stand-up only match, I'd give her like a 35-40% chance. She's not completely out of the fight. We're not going to see a one-sided victory here, but we are going to see Carla Esparza with the less polished striking, if you will. She's still good, but not just Rose is on a different level with her striking. So like I'd say 35-40%. You agree with that, or you seeing something different, Derick?
Brother, not to be rude, but I don't see it that way. I see Rose Namajunas a 95% chance of just mopping it up with Carla Esparza just solely on the feet. I think, Esparza could land the big bomb every now and then, but Rose Namajunas is such a skillful striker. Look at what she's done to Joanna Jędrzejczyk on two different occasions, right? Look at what she did to Jessica Andrade. Look at what she did to Wei Li. I mean, brother, these are elite fighters, and on the feet, I mean, she's gotten the better of every single one of these fighters. Maybe not Andrade. Andrade really did kind of beat up Namajunas, especially in that second fight. But I just think that overall, man, like, she's deadly. Her flow state in her boxing is too crucial. Her kickboxing is too beautiful. Head kicks coming out of nowhere. So Esparza's going to have to be careful. And she's definitely going to have to be careful for a knee or a teep up the front when she's trying to shoot in for that takedown. But last thing that I wanted to compare before we talk props, UFC record for both of these fighters, 9-3 is Rose Namajunas, 9-4 is Carla Esparza. Just leave that, I'll leave that there. You know what I mean? I thought that was just a little bit interesting because they came in at the same time. I mean, they've had pretty similar careers. Namajunas has just had more high-level fights and championship fights. That's all. So, AJ, minus 200 is Rose Namajunas on the money line, plus 170 for Carla Esparza. But when we're talking about the tangible point, the tangible props, the ones that are important, it's points on this one. For Rose Namajunas, plus 175 on points, plus 255 for Carla Esparza on points. I like that plus 255, Carla Esparza on points. I love that. I think that is so much value right there because you're going from plus 170 to plus 255, just like that. And the outcome of this. I mean, let's look at methodologies of victory. Rose is more of a finisher. Two knockouts, 5 submissions, 4 decisions. For Esparza, 4 knockouts, 4 submissions, 10 decisions. What do you think, brother?
Yeah, no, I see what you're saying. I actually like the points line as well, man. That is what'd you say for Namajunas on points?
For Rose, it's plus 175.
175. I mean, going from a minus 200 to plus 175, that's not bad at all, man. And that's what I'd go with as well. I'm going Namajunas by points. I think that's going to be the best way she gets it done, man. Staying loose, staying lucrative, keeping it on her feet, and just staying on that bike the whole time.
Yeah.
I see that as the most valuable. If you're going Namajunas, because I agree with you. If you are going to Esparza and you are going to Esparza by points, that seems the best way for sure.
Yeah, and that's what I'm rocking. Esparza on points plus 255, folks. I'm going to check back in with you next week. I'm either going to be deadly right or deadly wrong. It's going to be one of the two, but I'm hoping I'm right. And I think Esparza can do it, man. I think she can do it because, once again, you don't have to damage, bloody, destroy your opponent because the way the judges have been seeing it recently, and hopefully, I mean, maybe it'll be different. This is Arizona, but this is in Vegas. But we have been seeing that, like, the person it goes like phases, right? It's like the person who's a heavy grappler, sometimes they give them way too much credit. Then sometimes they give them no credit at all. I'm hoping to give him some credit. So I'm picking the over on this one. The over is 4.5 rounds, brother. So we both rocking the over on this one?
Yeah, rocking the over.
Okay. Sounds like a plan, brother. All right, man. And we'll move on to the next one. So Michael Chandler versus Tony Ferguson. El Cucuy makes his return. And I'm not going to lie to you, AJ. I don't feel great about this one because El Cucuy is on a 3-fight losing skid, but against a great opposition. Justin Gaethje, Charles Oliveira, Beneil Dariush. I mean, there's no better hit list than you can get than that. But then again, you run into Michael Chandler. So it's like, oh, goddamn. They're just feeding my man to the wolves. Absolutely. Michael Chandler himself is on a little bit of a skid, but to Charles Oliveira and Justin Gaethje. So there is that. What does it mean to you that Michael Chandler got finished in his fight against Charles Oliveira but didn't against Justin Gaethje? What does that mean to you?
Oh man, I think it was just in that Oliveira fight. I think he just got caught. I think he was so excited on how round one was ending that he was just pushing that momentum into round two. Next thing you know, your hands are down. You get your chin is touching your shoulder, and you see Charles Oliveira standing over you, just raining down hammer fists. I think that's exactly what happened in the Michael Chandler fight. Still, I mean, impressive win for Oliveira, but I think it was just one of those ones where he got caught. And I don't think it's going to be this way for Tony Ferguson, man. I think he's going to come in, focused, dialed in. And Chandler, he isn't one of those fighters that usually fights off of emotion, man. He's usually staying in there. And now it's the exact opposite with Tony Ferguson, man. Tony Ferguson's coming in pissed off, crazy, and with a chip on his shoulder. I think everybody hates him. He hates everybody. So we're going to see a big clash of dynamics right here, man. And to me, just the biggest difference was just that Michael Chandler got caught in that Oliveira fight, man. Do you see any other big difference right there?
You know what? No, I kind of agree with you there, but I do think it's also telling the amount of damage he was able to take from Justin Gaethje, but wasn't really able to. I mean, obviously it was quick. You get caught, and then a couple ground and pound, then we call it off. It's over. But yeah, so it's like Charles Oliveira put a little more pace on him, a little more pressure on him. Justin Gaethje was a little more methodical, right? This is the big thing for me for Tony Ferguson, though, man. You've been hearing him talk a lot about I've been surrounding myself around the wrong people, the wrong mentality. I need to go do this. I need to be around better coaches. So it's constant flux. We're going here, and then we're going there, then we're going here, then we're going there. So there's no stability right there. You're not able to build on something. That, to me, seems like a problem because Michael Chandler, out of Stanford MMA, over there with Henry Hooft or whoever he's rocking with, man. I mean, listen, man, he's searching for that win. He's currently 1-2 in the UFC. That big win over Dan Hooker, lost a couple. He's looking to get back in this win column, looking shredded, looking like he's on a little too much acai, if you ask me. But I'm not. Listen, who am I? But this is the key right here. Michael Chandler puts on a ferocious pace in round one. We know this. We've always known this, right? If he's able to put that pace on Tony Ferguson, can El Cucuy survive the first round?
I think so, man, because El Cucuy, he's a dog in there as well, man. He is, if anything, time tested and war beaten, bro. There's El Cucuy. If he's one of the few guys who is willing to stand in there and get bloodied up and stay with the fight, man. He's almost on that Diaz level, even the Clay Guida or even the Darren Elkins level where he gets bloody, he gets better. And especially once he gets a little bloody, he gets you a little bit bloody. Those elbows get a little sharper. Those submissions get a little bit deeper. So I think if Michael Chandler, I think he can survive. I think Tony Ferguson can survive that first round. And if Michael Chandler goes a little too wild and starts really dipping into that gas tank like he did in the Justin Gaethje fight, then we're going to see some interesting things unfold, man. If that's the case, that's where the fight really starts in that round two.
Well, that was my whole question right there is if Tony Ferguson survives round one and Michael Chandler, what we saw against Gaethje, man, he really dropped off in that round two. This is Tony Ferguson. I mean, that's his opportunity to really capitalize. But El Cucuy today, right? The 38-year-old El Cucuy doesn't really have that same pop in his shots. At least it doesn't seem like it. He doesn't have that one-hitter quitter in you. He still has the submissions, right? I mean, I think he was trying to lock up a nasty Darce on Justin Gaethje, right? Didn't really end up working out. You know, he ended up just getting taken down. But this is the question. So Tony Ferguson, great wrestler, right? I mean, he talks about his wrestling. He's an old-school wrestler, whatever. Michael Chandler, really, really good wrestler. But Michael Chandler is only a good wrestler when he actually uses the wrestling. That's the thing, is he falls in love with the hands. He doesn't want to use the wrestling. Tony Ferguson, though, he kind of has a knack for ending up in his guard and trying to play in his guard. I don't think that's a good idea against Michael Chandler. What do you think?
I don't think so, but Tony's so weird because normally that's not a good look. You know, your back's on the ground. Sure, you're staying active. You're getting, you know, all this stuff. You're setting up traps. But the one big difference with Tony Ferguson that I like about him, he stays with the elbows, man. He throws those elbows any chance he can get, and his are sharp too. So he'll cut you up even from bottom. One of the rare dudes that can actually get that done.
And it actually reminds me a little bit of when Tony Ferguson fought Kevin Lee. And Kevin Lee, great wrestler himself too, right? Was putting it on Ferguson. Next thing you know, he ends up getting choked out, and that was it, man. Elbows from the guard, all that. It's very reminiscent to what Marina Rodriguez did to Carla Esparza, actually, when they fought, man, where Carla Esparza was on top the whole time, but Rodriguez was just throwing a bunch of elbows off the bottom. Another Muay Thai specialist right there. Either way, man, I honestly can see Michael Chandler running away with this fight or ending it really early, or I could see him fighting this nasty, dirty fight with Tony Ferguson, which lends to Tony Ferguson's style. If El Cucuy can make his return, that'll be a great thing, but I think Father Time is against him, AJ. I'm going to be honest with you. 38 years old. You could have all the mentality in the world, let's be honest, brother, but Father Time is undefeated. So with that being said, Chandler's a heavy favorite, minus 410, plus 320 comeback for Ferguson. But let's talk props. If we wanted Ferguson, just to see by submission, right? Let's just see. Plus 750 for a submission on Tony Ferguson. For a TKO for Michael Chandler, plus 110. Now, this is the thing that I want to tell you, AJ. When you're looking at props, it'll tell you the first available prop is the one that is most likely, that has the lowest odds. So for Tony Ferguson, the lowest odds is not TKO or submission, it's actually points, and it's plus 550, so it's still not a good look. Obviously for Chandler, the easiest one for him, TKO plus 110, then points at plus 250. So what do you see? Do you see a finish in this one? Do you see a decision? Obviously, Tony Ferguson has only been finished twice in his illustrious career, and it's pretty much it's come, what? Recently? No, those are both decision losses, actually. He didn't tap to Oliveira when he got his arm snatched. He didn't tap to Dariush when he got his knee exploded. Brother, I mean, this dude is made of steel or indestructible or fucking vibranium or whatever, brother. How do you see this playing out?
Yeah, man, I see this one going to decision, man. I see a drawn-out 3-round scrap, especially for the fact that it is 3 rounds again. Michael Chandler fighting at that instead of the 5-round club. I see you just chaos, man. And the more the more Michael Chandler dumps that gas tank in that first round, the better it's gonna lean towards Tony Ferguson going in. But I'm a big El Cucuy fan. Man, I love Tony Ferguson, especially when he was in the era, you know, with the shades on, going for, you know, Khabib, had everybody pissed. He had everybody inside, repping Mexico. Like, I was a big Tony Ferguson fan, man, but I think he's stepped off a lot. He's fallen off a little bit, and I think it's Iron Michael Chandler's time. Like I said, man, I'm going Chandler. I'm going by decision. I think that plus, would you say 250 on decision? Something like that? That's a good deal right there. It's not too bad, man.
Yeah, plus 250 for Chandler on points right there. And AJ, man, I'm going to rock with Michael Chandler too. Like I said, Father Time, I think it's undefeated. I think this is Michael Chandler. He is in terms of being a prime fighter, he's in his 36, man. So he's not like prime, right? You know what I mean? But this dude, physically, athletically, he's still right there, ready to go in championship pursuit still. Does this win get him a title shot? No, absolutely not. But I do think that he's going to finish Tony Ferguson, brother. As shameful as that is for me to say. I'm going with a second round TKO for Michael Chandler, but I'm still rocking with the over right there. So for that prop, plus 110 on the TKO, a lot better than minus 410. I think, to be honest though, because this is such an up in the air fight, minus 410 might be the safe play for Michael Chandler, but I'm going to rock with the upside, plus 110 TKO Michael Chandler. Let's get it. All right, AJ, now we're hitting blast from the past time. We're hitting nostalgia time. So let's take a step backwards into memory lane. We have Shogun Rua versus Ovince St. Preux. Now, let's be honest here, AJ. Both of these fighters have been on a little bit of a skid as of late, right? OSP, 2-3 in his last 5. His last 2 losses have both been knockout losses. Shogun Rua, he is 2-1 in his last 5. 1 draw to Paul Craig, 1 knockout loss to Paul Craig. A split decision win against Big Nog, Antonio Rogerio Nogueira. He knocked out Tyson Pedro, brother, who we just saw made his comeback a couple weeks ago, so that's important. But he also got knocked out by your man, Anthony Smith. First round TKO elbows. So it's not looking good for either of these fighters, you know what I mean? Coming in, it's kind of like a loser leaves town match, and we're going to talk about that also with the next fight. But listen, OSP, we've seen a considerable drop-off in OSP's performance as of late. Now, he's been having to fight these young guns, right? The Tanner Bosers, the Jamal Hills, Alonzo Menafields. Obviously, you get the Ben Rothwell. That's the OG fight. He lost a split decision there. But then you get the Michael Alexichuks. Like, it's been these young guns now. When we're talking about Shogun Rua, it hasn't really been that same cloth, right? Tyson Pedro has really been the young gun, and I guess Paul Craig, I guess. But these were just two different types of last fives right here. What do you make of OSP's recent performance where it just seems like, and I don't want to be rude at all because, listen, man, this dude's a legend. You have to respect OSP. It just doesn't seem like he wants to be in there. You know what I mean? Do you feel the same way?
Yeah, man, the word I was using in my notes was lackadaisical. He's very much, he'll step in there. And there's times, man, in the Alonzo Menafield fight, this dude comes out and he's looking hungry, he's looking mean, he's looking youthful and vibrant and all the adjectives we like to use to describe somebody who's in there who wants to be in there. And then you go into that Tanner Boser fight or a couple of other ones, man, where he just looks flat-footed, unengaging. Like there's just something about him where he just stands like an old school fighter, chin up in the air, not really caring too much, and then bad things start to happen. I did not see the OSP losing to Tanner Boser at all until you see him fight that way, and then you're like, oh, okay, yeah, this dude, he's looking the same. Even in the Jamal Hill fight, and Jamal Hill's an amazing fighter, but he really just took it to OSP where OSP didn't have anything to do with it. He just took the standing TKO, man. He wasn't even really out. He was just getting beat up so bad that the ref was like, yeah, bro, like you're obviously not here mentally. You don't want to be here. You're not defending yourself. This is done. If that OSP shows up, it's going to be a rough day for him. Mauricio Shogun, who is going to come back looking like he's drinking out of that Arlovsky fountain of youth, man. So lackadaisical is the word I use best for because he really does. He looks like he doesn't want to be there. If that's the case, it's going to be rough for him. What do you think? Well,
I think Shogun Rua has that insane blitz that he still uses. I mean, it's an old man blitz. He's 40 years old. You know what I mean? This isn't 2011 anymore, 2008 anymore. It just blows my mind, bro, because I just remember, like, as a kid watching Shogun Rua, playing with him on the video games and all that. This dude is such a monster. This dude has 21 knockouts, brother. 21 knockouts and 1 submission. He has 22 career finishes in his long, like, almost, 40-plus fight career. So it's like, yeah, man, I mean, this is really one of those OG matchups, and let's see if he can still put on that same blitz. We haven't seen him in a couple of years, since like 2019, right? So this is the question mark. I don't know what Shogun Rua is going to bring to the table because, I mean, you could talk all you want, but what are you actually going to do? If he does blitz OSP in that first round, do you think he has enough juice in the tank to be able to finish OSP and OSP just shells up? Or do we see the OSP against Alonzo Menafield where he shells up, hits him with that big counter hook and just tries to take his lights out? What do you think?
Yeah, that right there is a coin toss for me, Derick, because I saw Shogun, whose best route to victory is blitz. Yeah. Be that bulldog, be the dude who's going to be in OSP's face and make him quit again, because we've seen him do that in the past where he just stands there. If that's the case, yeah, good. But then there's that OSP that can always do that exact same thing that we think he's going to shell up, and then land a big one. Yeah, dangerous style for OSP, but we'll see if Shogun can actually get it past him, because if Shogun can do that, weathers that big punch and then keeps the gas pedal on, how many big punches do you think OSP has left that he can actually get done?
That's a great question, brother, and I don't have the answer for you. But I do have something pertaining to talking about quitting, right? You said OSP has some quit in him, but Shogun Rua tapped to strikes in his last fight. Tapped to strikes. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. You tap when you tap. If you feel like you cannot defend yourself properly, it is not worth taking the damage in there. Please tap. But if we're talking about giving up, that's part of giving up, right? You'd say, I want to live to fight another day. There's no more. Tap. That's it, brother. I want to be done. And he did that. So Shogun Rua is going to have to overcome that in this fight. OSP is going to have to overcome that. But at least he said, you got to turn the button off. You know what I mean? I'm not going to give up. You got to hit the button. And that's what happened in both fights. So AJ, brother, let's talk props, right? Plus 210 is Shogun Rua. I'm kind of surprised OSP is a minus 260 favorite. It makes sense because he's been more active, but then again, he hasn't fought really recently, right? He's been fighting like once a year, maybe twice a year. When we're talking about props for OSP by TKO, so look at that. It's just too many abbreviations, right? Ovince St. Preux by TKO plus 375. Shogun Rua by TKO plus 200. those are the best odds on the props thus far, man. If you want to go points, Shogun Hua on points is plus 300, OSP on points plus 500. If you think OSP could somehow, some way get a Von Preux choke on Shogun Hua and call it quits right there, plus 1,400 for the submission prop, brother. So what are you liking out of those?
Ooh. I mean, that plus 14 by submission is always a thing, man, because there's something, like you said, man, you got to combine those names, man. Von Preux all day. It's a choke that can happen at any point with OSP fighting in there. I kind of like that a little bit more, man. Originally, I was going to go by TKO because I can see big bombs landing in this fight. I like that submission, man. It's a long shot, but it's a big shot, and it's a shot that has happened in the past pretty frequently. Yeah. And especially with Shogun, he gets a little tired, kind of, and then that blitz, they get in a clinch, they go to the ground. Next thing you know, Von Preux is locked up. Mm-hmm. I can see that happening, man. I can see it happening.
I can see it happening, but then again, Shogun Hua is no rookie to the game. This is a chiseled veteran. He's only lost by finish 6 times in his nearly 40-fight career, so I don't know if it's going to happen right now. You never know. But believe it or not, even though I really like all of those props, even though I think OSP could hit him with a nice counter shot to try to finish the day, even though I think Shogun Hua might be able to finish OSP, I actually see this fight going to a decision, brother. I think that this is going to be a slow, banger, old man, nostalgia fight. I think we're not going to get the results that we want, but I think the names are enough to get us excited to want to watch. So I'm picking OSP by decision. The over and under is 1.5 rounds on this one. I am taking the over, brother. How do you see it?
Yeah, you said over 1.5. I'm also taking the over. I'm gonna go OSP. I'm going submission, man. I'm going late. I'm going early round 3. So still with the over. Right early round 3, OSP by submission.
And hopefully it is by a Von Preux, because the last time that he got that one wasn't really too recently, but it was against Michael Alexichuk. That was a second round Von Preux choke. So we will leave that for what it is worth. All right, AJ. Papa Cerrone versus Joe Lauzon, brother. This is a striker versus a grappler, but let's not forget, Cerrone does have a pretty nasty guard when he wants to use it. Now, Joe Lauzon, if we saw his last fight, here's the thing, brother. The reason why I'm excited about this fight is because Joe Lauzon, who hasn't been fighting recently, brother, let's be honest. I mean, come on. He had a couple bad losses, put a couple finishes to Clay Guida and Chris Gritzmacher. Not good. A majority decision loss to Stevie Ray. And you got a split decision win after that. It hasn't been looking good for Joe Lauzon. It hasn't been looking good for Cowboy Cerrone, who hasn't won since 2019. 5 losses in a row, right? You'll have a knockout loss to Alex Morono. He had a draw against Nico Price that got turned to a no contest because of marijuana on Price's end, which is a little unfair, but either way. Anthony Pettis, he loses. McGregor loses in the first round, gets finished. Gaethje loses in the first round, gets finished. I mean, it hasn't been looking good for either fighter. But Joe Lauzon in his last fight against JP3, Jonathan Pierce, or JSP, that's his name. Jonathan Pierce, brother, when he took him down and he finished him and he put him in this weird unorthodox, I don't even know what you call it, but his arm was over his head in like a weird crucifix, getting his face smashed in. That made you say, okay, this man's 37 years old, but Joe Lauzon can put you in a bad spot and hurt you really badly still, right? Cowboy Cerrone hasn't really shown us that, though. You know what I mean? As of late. Now, he's emotional. He's ready to go. He's fired up. You can tell he's going to bring it. But isn't Cowboy always fired up coming into these fights? Isn't he always ready to bring it? That's why he's Cowboy. That's why we love him, because he's ready to scrap regardless of the scenario. Who are you more hyped on in terms of getting their first win? Or I guess not first win, because Lauzon's coming off of a win, but you know what I mean? Getting back to the winning ways. Dana White did say, brother, that loser of this one might be having to pack it up and, you know what I mean, hit the road. So what do you think about this?
For some reason, I thought this was loser packs it up and goes home. Winner also packs it up and goes home. This could be one of those fights where it's just we're in it for a scrap and that's about it. Nothing future coming forward. And originally, I guess to answer your question, Derick, I'm more excited to see Cowboy win just because I'm a bigger Cowboy fan. But originally, I thought Joe Lauzon was going to get this one done, man. He has the more momentum. He has, I guess, more mystique to him because he hasn't been losing these big named fights. And the only time we haven't seen Cowboy step in and be that emotional wrecking ball that he is, that Cowboy style, was against a Conor McGregor. That was the one where he kind of came in. They were being friendly. They were being fun. Things were happening. It's all good. No, there was no animosity there. I think he's going to still have the no animosity, but I think he's going to come in with a different kind of mindset that this is last fight. And like I was saying in the video, that literally everything that changed my mind is now Cowboy in his mind has the perception that his 4-year-old boy can finally see what his dad does, and he's going to remember it. Now, I don't know about you, Derick. I don't remember shit at 4 years old. Maybe it's all the extracurricular activities in the past, or the sports, concussions, whatever the case may be. But even though if his son remembers this or not, Cowboy thinks his son is going to. So I think that's what's going to be the extra kind of push right there. That's going to have that extra little bit of grit, that little extra bit of mentality that's going forward for Cowboy. And I think that's what really gives him the edge. You seeing that too, or are we going full Joe Lauzon over here?
Well, I don't think any of that extracurricular has anything to do with the performance that's going to be put on display this weekend. I think Donald Cerrone just in and of himself is a great fighter, right? He's a little at an advanced age, 39 years old, right? He hasn't had the best of luck recently, hasn't been too competitive in his fights. But if he starts getting going on the feet and he starts developing momentum in the striking, I think that he can easily win this fight, like run away with this fight, no problem. The problem is if he starts getting entangled in the grappling, and that's when it starts to favor Joe Lauzon, I think, in a very considerable degree. Because Donald Cerrone, even though he has this pretty wicked guard, man, that everybody talks about, they say it's his like superpower that he just chooses not to use on a continual basis. Joe Lauzon is like a mastermind of putting you in the weird spot or trying to go. Last thing you want is to get heel hooked in front of your 4-year-old boy and just be walking out on a blown up knee. Like, that's the thing you want. You know what I mean? Joe Lauzon will do those things to you. He'll put you in deep waters when it comes to submissions. Let's just go over. I mean, it's going to be considerable because both of these dudes have the same number, I believe, but let me just be sure. So just to be clear on this one, AJ. So it looks like for Joe Lauzon, the number of submissions the man has is a deadly number. It's the number 17. But Donald Cerrone also has 17 submissions, right? But Lauzon is more of a, how would you say, a specialist, I guess, you know what I mean? His striking is nowhere near the level of his submissions are. But when you look on paper, it's a weird picture that's being painted. 10 knockouts for Cerrone, 9 knockouts for Lauzon. 17 submissions for Cerrone, 17 submissions for Lauzon. 9 decisions for Cerrone, 2 decisions for Lauzon. So on paper, you're like, well, they have the same skills, but in reality, that's not the case, right? If this got down to that entanglement, that ground scenario, do you think Cerrone has a chance to be able to submit Lauzon, or do you think that this is going to be all in favor of Lauzon on the ground?
I can see Cerrone getting the submission. I can. But I think Joe Lauzon is just a little too skilled at it now and working on it consistently, where Cowboy, he's fallen in love with the hands and he's fallen in love with the style that he fights. And he, like you said, just chooses to not use his superpower. So if he chooses to, could he? Yeah. Is he going to? I don't think so. What about you? Do you see him pulling that submission out?
I don't really see it. I don't think it's a big part of his game personally. You know what I mean? Right now, I think especially in front of your boy, what kind of performance you want to put on? Come on, brother. Man to man, you want to go in, you want to throw fisticuffs. You know what I mean? So it's going to be fun. I think it's going to be all Cerrone on the feet, but Joe Lauzon is actually more technical of a striker than people give him credit for, man. He has much more technical striking, but in his last fight against Ali Quinto, which was some time ago, right? But when you watch that fight back, I mean, he just gets picked apart on the feet, and there's really nothing that he has for him. So if he's not able to get the fight onto the ground or get close enough to close the distance to start grappling and doing that, it could be a long night. However, I just find it surprising that Joe Lauzon is a plus 150 underdog. Both of these dudes haven't been hot recently, but why is Cerrone so favored? Why is he a -1? Or actually, I looked at plus 150. That's current odds. Plus 160 on the opening odds that we have up here. So minus 190 for Cerrone. I don't understand it. It has leveled out right now. Minus 175 for Cerrone, plus 150 for Lauzon. Let's talk props. Lauzon by submission, plus 700, brother. They're not thinking he can get it done. Cerrone by TKO, plus 210. Lauzon by TKO, plus 350. Cerrone by points, plus 350. Lauzon by points, plus 450. So there's a lot of different ways we can go here. But to be honest, brother, the most likely outcome of this fight, even though it is a Legends fight, it's probably a decision, right? That's like probably the most likely outcome. So on points, let's just talk that. Plus 350 for Cowboy, plus 450 for Lauzon. Which one do you like better?
I like the Cowboy by points. Mm-hmm. I think he'll stay in the fight a little bit longer, a little bit grittier right there. What about you?
You know what? I actually agree with you. I think Cowboy on points at plus 350 is probably a more valuable bet because I think that Lauzon is probably going to go submission hunting or he's going to, you know what I mean? That's one of his real paths to victory. I think Cowboy can get this done all day on a decision. However, I think Lauzon can win by decision too if he has enough control time. If he has you can see clearly that's where I'm going with this card. I just think the winner of the control, the winner of the grappling exchanges is going to be the winner of the fights on this card specifically. However, we will see. This is a 39-year-old Cowboy versus 37-year-old Joe Lauzon, and when you know that the boss tells you in the back, hey, fellas, You lose, you done. You know what I mean? Maybe if you win, you done too. So you better put on a fucking show. You know what I mean? Like when you have that in the back of your head, you know you got to bring it. Maybe that's partially why Cowboy was so emotional coming into the fight. Even though he's been a company man, there's only so long you can be that company man for until the company cuts ties with you. So I'm going to pick Joe Lauzon. I'm going to go on points at plus 450 right there. But obviously I'm taking the over 2 because the over is 2.5 rounds. How you see it, brother?
Yeah, I'm going with the over. I'm going by points, but I'm going Papa Cerrone, man. I'm going Cowboy.
All right. Understood. Don't even need to really say anything else other than just tune in and enjoy, get your popcorn, all that fun stuff. Now, AJ, let's talk about a couple of, how would you say, prelims, right? Prelim Pourover, brother, just really quickly. I just want to talk about a few. So, AJ, we have an interesting matchup between Tracy Cortez and Melissa Gatto. This is a women's flyweight matchup. Now, Tracy Cortez, she's known for that, what's up, let's bang, and then I'm going to go and grab you and grapple you and stay on top of you and ground and pound. So it's like, nah, okay, you know, it's not really banging, right? And I don't know if you want to bang against Melissa Gatto, who's coming off of that beautiful body kick finish against Sijara Eubanks, which I can't tell you folks how impressive that is, especially because Gatto is being controlled by a great grappler in Eubanks for a few rounds considerably. This is going to be a fun fight, AJ, but I think Tracy Cortez, man, I don't know why. She's been so inactive recently. I mean, Melissa Gatto hasn't fought super recently either, but like Tracy Cortez has been pretty inactive. However, 9-1, Gatto still undefeated, 8-0 with 2 draws. Who do you give an edge to in this fight? Cortez is a minus 180 favorite.
Yeah. Ooh, Cortez is the favorite.
Yeah.
I was giving it to Melissa Gatto originally, man. I was actually going to make this my sleeper, but then I saw the other fights going down. I'm still giving it to Gatto. I think she's been a little bit more active lately, man. That Cortez favorite's interesting.
Yeah, I think so too, and I don't necessarily understand it, especially because Gatto has a 4-inch reach advantage. So if it just stays out in the striking, I think Gatto has a real path to victory here. However, is she going to be able to reverse position if Cortez gets her on the ground and just tries to work the ground and pound, maybe work a submission or something like that? I don't know. She did it against Eubanks, who I think is probably a far superior athlete. Maybe not an athlete, but fighter than Tracy Cortez is. But either way, Cortez has something to prove here, especially because she's entwined with that Brian Ortega camp. You know what I mean? It's just going to be interesting because there's a lot of hype on that camp. It's the Brian Ortega camp. He's a very popular fighter. But the hands is something that I'd like to see a little bit more of Tracy Cortez. I think the hands, just a little bit sloppy, a little more to be desired, but probably she's been working a lot on that in this camp. He had so much off time. I hope to see a lot of major developments. I just think it's going to be a fun fight, but I want to urge the fans at home, plus 125 currently for Melissa Gatto. I might jump on that one because I think Gatto is a real live dog right here. Would you agree with me?
100%, man. That's why I was saying it was interesting that she's the underdog right there. I think there's some serious value on that plus 1, and it's only plus 125, man. Not that bad either. So it is. You can tell the odds makers also think it's a close fight too.
Absolutely. So it should be a fun one. AJ, Blagoy Ivanov is fighting for the first time in who knows how long, but he's fighting a man who's a real dangerous fighter, Marcos Rogerio de Lima. And de Lima, Muay Thai fighter, big boy, right? Can get you on the ground, hold you there either way. Blagoy is great with the hands though, man. This dude's currently number 15 in the heavyweight division. Why? I have no clue. Because he's fought these names. Has he fought them recently? No, but he's number 15 nonetheless. Listen, this is just going to be a tough fight right here. And Blagoy Ivanov is a dude who brings it every single time. You can't take that away from him. However, Rogerio de Lima has been a lot more active, man. So do you think Rogerio de Lima tries to get him on the ground, just hold him there and work some ground and pound, try to get the finish? Do you think Blagoy is going to come back with an impressive boxing showcase? I mean, what do you make of this?
I'm giving the edge right here to Rogerio de Lima, man. Just with staying active, staying with his game plan going. Yeah. We really haven't seen much of Blagoy coming in, and I think that rust is going to show, man. So I think if Rogerio de Lima can actually get him to the ground, keep him there, it's going to be a long day for Blagoy. But don't get me wrong, man. Like you said, homeboy has some hands, so if he can crack on him, it's going to be a rough night for Rogerio.
And Blagoy is a plus 125 underdog, which is a little surprising, just a little bit surprising given how talented of a fighter he is, but it makes sense. I think de Lima should be the favorite on that one. AJ, Ariane Carnelossi versus Lupi Godinez. This is a fire versus fire. This is grappler versus grappler. This is hard hitter versus hard hitter, but I think Carnelossi arguably is going to be the bigger fighter, the much larger fighter come fight night, I personally believe. Lupi Godinez is a little undersized, but she's got some will and tenacity and heart and strength and all of that good stuff, man. She knows how to get the fight to the ground for the most part and hold you there. I just see it a little problematic because I think Carnelossi, even you just look at their builds, man. Carnelossi is like stacked. Godinez is a little. I wonder what she walks around at. That's just my question. I wonder what she walks around at because I think Carnelossi probably has to cut a lot to get down to 115. Now, Carnelossi, who is infamous right now, right? I think people have forgotten about it a little bit, but just sticking the eyeballs all in the eyes of Jillian Robertson, right? Or no, this isn't even her. Who was it? Who was that? That's not Carnelossi. Who was that? Who stuck the eyeballs? You don't know?
I don't remember the girl where she was jumping back in the.
Well, I will apologize. How about that? Because I am defaming the great Ariane Carnelossi. She's coming off of that big win against Estela Nunez, which was a big submission win in the third round. She has a TKO prior to that, a couple TKOs. She lost to Angela Hill. She did get TKO to Angela Hill. Okay, brother. All right, let's take a step back. Ariane Carnelossi. Sorry, folks. I got a little confused right there. But she's a bad woman right here. And she's still jacked and stacked. I was not wrong about that. She is still super, super big for the frame. So I would like to know what she walks around at. I would like to know what Lupi walks around at. But the question is going to come down to this. For the fight to get down to the ground, Lupi Godinez averages 4.5 takedowns per fight. Carnelossi averages about 2.5. I mean, listen, if Carnelossi holds a Godinez down, it could be a long night, but I think Godinez is probably going to try to still make that her bread and butter. I mean, do you see that fire versus fire still working for her? Or do you think she's going to have to develop a little bit of a striking repertoire as well? What do you think?
Man, I see Lupi Godinez a little bit outmatched in every round, every aspect right here, man. And I'm a big fan of Lupi, man. I like her coming in. I like the fight, the kind of style she has and the aggression she puts forth, especially in the women's division. I feel like it's lacking. But Carnelossi, excuse me, she is a good, great fighter that has all the same intangibles as Godinez, but just a little bit better, a little bit more polished. Been in the UFC a little bit longer. I think this is a real hard fight for Godinez, but if she's able to get past this one, it's a slingshot spot, man. She gets one past Carnelossi. We're going to see her going forward.
Gotcha. And I just discovered, brother, that I apologize because it's just too Brazilian, so I just got confused. But it was Priscila Cachoeira was the one with the eye poke, and she's super jacked and stacked too. So Carnelossi apologized. It was Cachoeira. Either way, I agree with you, man. I do see that Carnelossi having the advantage here. I think Lupi Godinez, her gamesmanship and her heart is going to be an X factor in this fight. Who knows? Maybe she gets Carnelossi tired, and then she starts to take work in the later half of the second and third round. But I think it should be a fun fight either way. Don't want to spend too much time on it because we don't have too much time left. Randy Rude Boy Brown, AJ, versus Khaos Williams. How this isn't on the main card, I have absolutely no idea. Obviously, it's going to get a lot of eyeballs on it because it's the featured prelim. But this is, I mean, brother, this could headline a fight night, in my opinion, right here. I mean, I would pay to see this fight personally, but I love that we get it for free. So, Randy Rude Boy Brown, I mean, this dude has been a menace as of late, bro. 14-4. He's long, he's lanky. He's got, believe it or not, only a 1-inch reach advantage on Khaos Williams, which goes to show how fucking long Khaos Williams' arms are. But coming off 2 big wins against the Night Train, Jared Gooden, and Cowboy Oliveira. He lost to Vicente Luque, has a win against Warley Alves and Brian Barberena, and you know how tough Barberena is. But then again, you're talking about a Khaos Williams who just came off of that big starching win against Miguel Baeza and has aged very well, AJ. No, not really. Baeza has been on a little bit of a skid, but not a big win against Matthew Semmelsberger. He lost to Michel Paeta. That was just an output thing, personally. I think it wasn't like you really lost. Knocked out Abdul Razak Al Hassan and then Alex Morono, brother. So this is truly a power technical striker in Khaos Williams versus a rude boy Randy Brown who can do it in a plethora of ways. He can grapple with you. He can strike you out of distance, use the big teeps, use the pressure. But I honestly think it's interesting to see that Khaos Williams is the -120 favorite with the +100 comeback for rude boy Randy Brown. What do you make of it?
Really?
Yeah.
Really? I haven't looked at these odds yet. Khaos Williams is the favorite. I would not have expected that, man. There's probably some serious value, and I'm a Khaos fan, so yeah. I'm excited to see that he's the favorite. But there's some serious value in that underdog status on Randy Brown, man. He's a dog, and he's a very dark horse dog in the division. Going at 170, I kind of like Randy Brown in that, man.
I like it too because I think his length is going to be too much. But like I said, given that the reach discrepancy isn't as big as I thought it was going to be, I wonder how that's going to play as a factor. I think if Khaos Williams catches him, it's going to be game over, man. I mean, Khaos Williams truly has that one-hitter quitter power in him. But for rude boy Randy Brown, I just think that he's really grown into himself. He's evolved as a fighter, and I think he's got much more experience at the highest levels in comparison to Khaos Williams. So just give me the prediction. You don't got to give me a prediction for the winner, but does this end in a decision or in a finish?
I think this ends in a finish. This one's getting finished for sure.
Yeah, I feel like it has to. If it goes to a decision, it'll be a very hard-fought, bloody decision, I think. But I think that it'll be a finish probably. I'm going to edge with Rude Boy Randy Brown on this one, man. Even though I think Khaos could do it easily, I think I got to rock with Randy Brown on that one. All right, AJ, just a couple more fights. We already talked about this one a couple months back or weeks back, whatever. Brandon Royval, Raw Dog versus Matt Schnell. Finally rebooked. Matt Schnell, he didn't make weight last time, had to stop cutting weight, medical issue. He's back. Let's just give the quick synopsis, brother. 2 great flyweights, 2 ranked flyweights. Brandon Royval has more of a submission threat. Matt Schnell, head always off that center line, you know what I mean? Moving, shaking, dodging, ducking, diving, right? Great striking. But Brandon Royval is the full package, brother. He does everything. He can submit you. He can hit you with a plethora of strikes. He's nonstop pace, moving forward. More volume. I mean, you give the edge to Royval in this one, or do you think Matt Schnell can come with the upset?
I originally on paper give the edge to Royval, but I think it's a lot closer of a fight than we're going to see, man. Schnell's a dog. Schnell can get in there and scrap, but I do give a little bit of the edge towards Royval. Yeah.
Yeah, plus 210 underdog is Schnell, minus 160 favorite for Royval. I like Raw Dog here. I also think that this is criminally low on the card. This is the first fight on the prelims. Not on the early prelims, but on like the regular prelims. This is the first fight of it. So that means that there's 3 fights after that before you hit the main card, which I don't know why. Because you also have Macy Chiasson versus Norma Dumont, brother. A bantamweight fight taking place at featherweight. Once again, there's no featherweight division, brother. I think it's clear cut at this point. The UFC just has a bunch of bantamweights who just take a featherweight fight for an opportunity. However, Chiasson is a natural 145er. Norma Dumont has done the majority of her work in the UFC at 145. Who wins this fight, AJ?
Man, I like Norma Dumont always, but Chiasson with the range, with the length, especially the Chiasson kicks, I think we can see some good stuff coming. I'm still giving the edge to Norma Dumont, but I think it is going to be a really good fight with Chiasson. Who are you giving the edge to?
Believe it or not, I'm a huge Macy Chiasson fan, but I'm actually going to rock with Norma Dumont in this one, brother. I think Dumont is going to be a little sharper, a little more crisp, a little more busy, and probably try to take the fight to the ground and try to keep her there. You know what I mean? Macy Chiasson, though, she could do the same thing, use those big knees in the clinch and all that fun stuff, man. It could be interesting. So we'll see what happens, but ultimately I do think that Norma Dumont, especially at 145, it's like a home game for her. You know what I mean? It's not like she has to drop down to 135, which she should be doing. She should be establishing her presence at 135, personally, I think. But who am I? I'm not Dana White. I'm not Mick Maynard or Sean Shelby, so we'll leave that for another time. All right, AJ, the last fight that I want to talk about before we get out of here, because there's the Trinaldo versus Danny Roberts fight. That'll be a really fun fight, folks. Just go watch that, trust us. But it's actually Andre Fialho versus Cameron Van Camp. Van Camp is nasty grappler, brother. Nasty grappler. This almost was my sleeper right here because Fialho, obviously, bombs in his hands, dynamite, you know what I mean? Nuclear explosives right here. When he hits you, you're going to go out. Van Camp, though, if he ends up wrapping his arms around the neck of an Andre Fialho, it's going to be a bad spot. So actually, my man AJ is having a little cough attack, so I'll talk a little further.
Cough attack. Tried to mute it right there, brother.
No worries, my man. So once again, I think that Andre Fialho, he's fresh. He's just coming off of a huge win. And let's just take a look at who he won against. Lest we forget, it was Miguel Baeza. What do you know? All right, so yeah, he knocked the head off of Miguel Baeza's shoulders. This was literally, bro, this is April 16th. So this was, 2 weeks ago? You know what I mean? So this dude's fresh, ready to go. Cameron Van Camp was supposed to fight. I think he was supposed to fight maybe... I don't remember who he was supposed to fight, but he was pretty highly touted coming into the UFC. He finally gets his shot against a killer like Fialho. I think this is going to be he's going to be in a disadvantage regardless, just because you have the fresher, fighter who's coming in, ready to go, who's already got that fight field, got the experience versus the debutante. I mean, grappler versus striker, brother. Who do you give it to?
Man, I'm giving this one all day to Fialho. Oh, well, not all day. Excuse me. I should say I'm giving this one to Fialho. But Cameron Van Camp, dude, this dude can come back. He is very, very dangerous. He was supposed to fight Nicholas Mota in his debut. Yeah. Something happened. I don't know the exact ones on it, but either way, this is going to be a fun fight, man. Yeah. I was thinking about this one as a sleeper as well because this one's going to be action-packed, man. Fialho's there to bang, and same thing with Cameron Van Camp. He's going to come in. He's going to work hard. He's going to do all the things, but I give the nerves always a little bit more poised for caution, Yeah. So I'm going with Fialho. I think he's going to have the advantage. He's going to have the comfort in that ring like he's been in there before, which he has. Now, Cameron Van Camp, he can also get it done, man. The young guns can come in and surprise us always.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, man. So that's basically the prelim pour-over, folks. There was a lot of fights. So this one's running a little long because it was just a ridiculous amount of fights. 15 fights. What can you say? We hit the main card. We hit the prelims. We hit the wagers. We hit the props. We hit everything. So do us a favor. Drop a like, subscribe, share the show with your friends, and let all of the people that you know that is intrigued in making money in terms of the fight game to holla at the Bloody Water Podcast. You dig. All right, AJ. So we actually have one last piece of business that I did not get to because this was just a weird morning, but we have a poster right here, brother. And we need to talk about it. Let's just do a little poster review real fast, man. So I actually, believe it or not, I think this is an interesting poster. It's good and it's bad at the same time. Like, it's really good because it's clean, clear, crisp, but it's bad because it's like y'all took 10 minutes to Photoshop this. You have Charles Oliveira's arm is halfway cut off. Like, I don't understand what's happening, but you got Charles Oliveira at a skew with Justin Gaethje, Rose Namajunas. It just doesn't have big fight feel to me, brother. This is a weird monotone with the yellow sun shining in the back, UFC 274, pure white background. Like I said, you took 10 minutes to Photoshop it and you said, all right, here we go. What do you make? Give me a score, brother.
I agree with you. It does look like it took 10 minutes to Photoshop, and I like how crisp and clean it is. That's a good word for it, man, because it is very, very clean. It pops. You know, you see this some stand somewhere, like, what the hell is that? To me, man, it looks like a bad super villain in a game. You know, like in an RPG, you see him. They got two heads rocking together. Yeah, I find it weird. I'm going a 5 on this one, man.
All right, well, that's not the worst score in the world that you can give it. I think I'll stick around that. I'll be a little more charitable. I'll give it a 6, you know what I mean? Just because I do think it's a little different than the status quo. Either way, that is your poster review for UFC 274. Apologies we didn't do it earlier. Folks, I don't really got much to say on this outro other than we appreciate you. Without you guys, there would be no show. We love talking MMA. We do it on a weekly basis. We've been doing it. It's coming on, been over a year at this point, brother. We're at 138 episodes, which is pretty ridiculous if you ask me. But we don't think about that because we're in the moment, because there's a competition at hand that I'm trying to win. I know AJ is trying to win it as well. But, my man, let's take a quick retrospective, if you do not mind, my man. Over the last 40 episodes or so, 38 episodes, since episode 100, we've gotten nothing but better here. We've fine-tuned and refined the program. But in terms of the question that I asked you earlier, where I was like, what, are you doing anything different? You're like, no, I'm sticking to my guns, man. What is the biggest lesson you've learned in comparison to, let's just go 100 episodes back? Episode 40, when we was just getting this thing started. What's the biggest lesson you have learned since then in regards to picking your fights, in regards to looking over the tape, in regards to trusting your gut? What has been the biggest thing you've learned so far?
I think it'd be that, Derick. Exactly that. Trust in your gut. So we've been watching this, and I've been watching fights for years. Since back in the day, we were scrapping, and one of my boys has a cul-de-sac. We'd go watch the fights. We watched GSP versus Matt Hughes, and we go outside and we fight as well, man. Back in the day, man. So I've been watching this a long time, and I think trust in the gut, trust in what you know. Like, oh, okay, this is how I'm feeling with this one. I think that's kind of my biggest thing I've learned going forward, man, because there's a lot of times in this where we're going, when I watch so much film back and forth on fighters, I'm thinking all these things in my head, and you just get it wrong sometimes. You get that paralysis by analysis, and a lot of the time, sometimes you just got to go with how you're feeling. And I think that's kind of the biggest takeaway for me. That and the work ethic of just got to get it done. Does sometimes the grind, you coming home late night, 9 p.m., 10 p.m., and you still got some fight work to get done? Suck it up and get it done. Let's do it. Those two things are probably my biggest takeaways right there. What about you, Derick? I'm curious to hear this one.
Well, those are fair. So the first one that I want to hit on is what you just mentioned, the suck it up and get it done. I've always been a proponent of that. I've been doing that for a long time, even when I was doing podcasts prior to this. But I actually had a buddy of mine recently just kind of talk about like, hey, your guys' upload schedule is crazy. And I was just like, well, yeah, man, because to me, this is like brushing my teeth. This is like waking up and eating cereal or whatever, you know what I mean? Like, it's just what we do. I live, eat, sleep, breathe fights. This is what it is. There is no stop. The grind is always constant. So that is just refining the discipline of just make it part of your routine, and it'll never seem like work. Boom, money. Here we are, 138 episodes later, right? But the other one would have to be picking apart and knowing how to disregard the machine that is the UFC, given that they know how to fucking cut a promo, bro. They know how to get you emotionally invested in a fight, which then takes your logic away and makes you pick based off of emotion. And I've done it time and time and time again. I've lost many weeks because I was emotionally invested in the fighter as opposed to logically saying, stylistically, how is this going to match up? How can I see this playing out? So I have to sometimes not watch the embeddeds, not watch the, you know what I mean, the crate, just cold opens that they do, just because they know how to really, they have it down to a science, brother. So I really think that that's been my biggest lesson thus far. pick with your brain, not with your heart. But sometimes on those 50-50 shots, maybe you do got to go with your heart, man. You know what I mean? But if the heart is just an extension of the gut, then we'll say go with your gut. So basically, it's the same things. But folks, if you're looking to get into the fight game in terms of not being a real fighter, you know what I mean? But if you're looking to get into the analysis aspect of it, or starting your show and you have some thoughts with your buddies you want to talk about, this is the route to take. Just start doing it. Start uploading it to the YouTube. Next thing you know, you got a show like us. So boom, this is the Bloody Water Podcast, best MMA show, not in the country, not on the global continent, but in the world, right? In the universe. There we go. I don't know if they got it on Mars, but if they did, we'd be better. I'll just leave it at that. All right, AJ, you got any last words for the people?
I like what you said, Derick. Even if they had it on Mars, Jupiter, Venus, doesn't matter. We'd be better, and you know where to come get the best picks, the analysis, the breakdown. You want to see some money in your hands, man. You want to see that bank account grow. You know where to go to get those picks, man. We give you the odds, the breakdowns, the money line, everything, man. You know where it is. You got to hit up that hub, bloodywaterpodcast.com. It's the easiest way to get it going. And like Derick said, I have a couple friends who've asked me, how do you guys get this going? How do you have the things doing? Do it. That's how. It's just the way to get it done, brother.
Get off your ass, do it. No one's going to do it for you. I couldn't have said it any better myself. That is it for us, folks. And until next time, we will see you on Monday for the post show. Peace.